one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
These were the monumental words which changed the face of science and history as we know it. These were the words spoken by Neil Armstrong as he became the first man to walk on the moon, not only bringing huge success to NASA, but the entire US itself. This is Space Race, the exploration, encounter, and exchange in the flight to the moon.
Many know the lunar landing is a monumental event, yet many undermine the new knowledge which it brought with it and how it became not only a defining moment in science, but politically and global effect altogether. It all began with a speech by John F. Kennedy, given the name "We Chose to Go to the Moon," when he called out the country's next big historical moment, space exploration.
Choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win.
These phases into innovation had caused a political encounter and rivalry between NASA and the Soviet space program, a Russian government-planned space station, but overall all of America and Russia itself, eventually creating a very high-tempered and very quick-tempered geopolitical landscape between the two countries, Russia and the United States of America.
There it began, the 17 years from 1955 to 1972 of hard work, all with its fair share of encounters with failed attempts and hardships. As shown in the NASA space manuscript of the entire process, it revealed the multiple designs for the spacecraft itself and the excruciating process to create the final known Apollo spacecraft.
By this point, the astronauts, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins, were all prepared to take the much-awaited first steps onto the moon.
T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence start. 6.
Finally, for the moment every scientist and worker had been waiting for, the Apollo 11 takeoff.
Everybody had held their breath, and together had cheered in relief. This was short-lived due to the fact that it was only the beginning, and now came the actual challenge, leaving Earth's atmosphere and entering the moon's.
As the scientists were racing around to make the dream reality, the space shuttle flying became one of the largest worldwide TV events in history, with an estimated of 600 million plus people tuning in to witness it.
Up in space, Armstrong, Edwin, and Aldrin were putting their months of practice to the test. As Armstrong and Buzz were on the Eagle, the rest of the crew was on Columbia checking the status of the craft's well-being.
As the ship departed from the command modules, problem began to occur. Astronauts Armstrong and Buzz were looking at the problem that might affect the flight to the moon. However, the command module was looking at it as well. The astronauts stared at the frozen display on the screen, which read Error 1202. As the crew members was troubled by the error message, calling resetted the computer tag, solving the problem. To this day, scientists still have no idea what the error tag was or how it happened, and yes, still remains a mystery.
They had three major options facing the astronauts aboard. 1. They would either land on the moon. 2. Would crash attempting to land. 3. Or would abort. With that, fuel was on a low as well. The astronauts had to choose quickly, and they had only positive option.
After minutes of suspense, America has finally done it. They have reached the moon, and it was at this time Armstrong took the first step onto the moon and said his famous quote, "One step for man, one giant leap for the rest of mankind."
During their 21 hours on the moon, Neil and Edwin collected rock samples for further research on Earth, as well as the iconic American flag was placed. Unfortunately, due to the harsh landing, the aircraft took a big impact. Armstrong and Aldrin both used their training knowledge and swiftly repaired the ship back to its original condition.
After collecting from the moon, they were told by Houston to go and rejoin with Collins in the command module. After returning to Collins, they had stayed in the orbit of the Earth, eventually returning back to it.
As our brave SEAL landed in the Pacific Ocean, a rescue team was on standby waiting for them to be picked up. At the rendezvous point, the three men were put into a 7-day quarantine and had a parade in their name. As the citizens of America were celebrating their success, NASA was gathering scraps of what was left of the two spacecraft.
During the whole experience, NASA went through some trading points or exchanges during the pre-engineering phase. One example of this exchange was a relationship between the US and the USSR and their conflicts and overall exchanges verbally and through scientific breakthroughs.
These countries were going through a hard time, the Cold War, but the companies held meetings and traded abundance of things, from ideas for the spacecraft to even people for the jobs that were needed.
As well as the ideas and people, the U.S. exchanged international certificates and other commemorative items. There were more speeches and exchanges of commemorative items before the meeting was closed with a handshake.
But nothing beats the fact that NASA invented a lot more than we could ask for, such as the diaper, CAT scanners, the computer microchip cordless tools, freeze-dried food, the joystick memory foam, light-emitting diodes, LED, and many more things. And now we quote from JFK's famous speech which started this all, "We choose to go to the moon. There is no strife, no prejudice, no national conflict in outer space as yet.
Its hazard are hostile to us all. Its conquest desired to be all of mankind, and its opportunity for peaceful cooperation may never come again."
But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well as ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why 35 years ago fly the Atlantic? What does Rice play Texas?
We chose to go to the moon. We chose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things.
We choose to go to the moon.